Dark chosen ones, if God gives you painful experiences, it's a huge gift. There is a kind of soul that walks this earth not to blend in, but to disturb the illusion. A soul that doesn't come here for comfort, but for transformation. And that soul is you, the dark chosen one. You've always known that you were different, even when you tried to convince yourself you weren't. Even when you tried to bury your depth beneath layers of normalcy, you knew. Because life wouldn't let you forget. Pain wouldn't let you forget. It followed you like a shadow, whispering truths others couldn't hear. And you wondered why. Why me? Why does it always feel like the universe has chosen me for storms while others walk safely in the sun? Why does it seem like every time I begin to rise, something pulls me down, breaks me open again? But what if the pain wasn't punishment? What if it was the mark of your calling? What if everything you've suffered was a sculptor's hand, shaping you into something this world has never seen?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Pain is the language of the sacred. It is the tool that strips away what is false, so what is real can finally breathe. And for dark chosen ones, this process is intensified. Because you didn't come here to live a soft life. You came here to awaken. An awakening requires pressure. It requires fire. It requires everything that is not you to be burned to ash, so that your true self can rise. You were chosen not because you were perfect, but because you were powerful. But so powerful that even your wounds have a purpose. Even your suffering is sacred. Think about the moments in your life that hurt the most. The betrayals, the losses, the loneliness that wrapped around you like a silent scream. Were those moments random, or were they initiations? Did they not force you to dig deeper, to question harder, to see through the illusions that most people blindly accept? That's the difference. The dark chosen one doesn't just survive pain, they mine it for meaning. They descend into the depths not to escape, but to retrieve wisdom that others are too afraid to touch. But it's easy to forget that when you're in the middle of it, when the pain is raw, when everything you thought was solid begins to collapse. In those moments, it feels personal. It feels like God has abandoned you. But listen closely, because this is where the mystery begins to unfold. Pain is not the absence of God. It is the pressure of divine intention. It is the voice of your higher self screaming through the cracks, "Wake up. Remember, there's more." And the more you resist the pain, the deeper it cuts. Because it's not here to destroy you, it's here to reveal you. The parts of you that are eternal. The strength you didn't know you had. The clarity you couldn't access through comfort. The truth is, pain clears the path. It removes what you don't need. It silences the noise. It forces you inward, into the cave where your true power was buried. Have you ever noticed that after your worst breakdowns, there was always a strange clarity? A moment where you saw reality differently, felt yourself differently. But that's not a coincidence. That's the gift. That's the moment the pain has done its job. It broke you open just enough for the light to seep in. That's when the transformation begins. Not when life is easy, but when you're broken enough to stop pretending. But here's the paradox the dark chosen one must wrestle with. The more pain you carry, the more potential you hold. And that means your life will not look like anyone else's. You won't be able to numb yourself the way others can, You'll see through the lies. You'll feel the energy in every room. You'll sense what others ignore. And that sensitivity, yes, it's a burden, but it's also your armor. Because it means you're awake. It means you're attuned. It means you can navigate the unseen realms that shape this world. Not everyone can do what you're here to do. That's why not everyone is chosen. But you were. And being chosen doesn't mean your life will be easy. It means your life will be meaningful, impactful, intense. It means you'll be asked to carry more, but it also means you'll be given more. More insight, more resilience, more connection to the divine. You are not just a human navigating random experiences. You are a soul on assignment, and pain is your activation. So the next time life breaks you open, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What is this trying to awaken in me?" Because every experience, no matter how brutal, carries a seed, a gift, a hidden key. And when you stop resisting, when you start listening, you begin to unlock it. You begin to see that your pain is not separate from your purpose, it is your purpose. It's the fire that forges the steel of your soul. The world needs you, not the masked version of you, not the one who's trying to be like everyone else. The real you. The one who has walked through fire and returned with wisdom. The one who has been shattered and still chooses to love. The one who has every reason to give up but still rises. That's the power of the dark chosen one. That's your power. And as you begin to embrace the pain as a gift, you'll notice something shift. The suffering won't stop, but your relationship to it will. You'll stop seeing it as the enemy. You'll start seeing it as the guide, the teacher, the portal. Because on the other side of your deepest pain is your highest purpose. The sacred fire, why dark chosen ones must be broken before they can lead. There's a reason the dark chosen ones are forged in the hardest fires. It's not because the universe is cruel. It's because your path requires a different kind of strength, one that can't be taught in books or learned in comfort. It has to be lived. It has to be earned. And so, you are broken. Not once, not twice, but again and again, until all that remains is your essence, the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are underneath the illusion. We live in a world addicted to surface. But you're being prepared to lead from soul, and soul doesn't rise until the ego has been shattered. The fire is sacred because it reveals what cannot be destroyed. Think about it. All the things you thought you needed, the approval, the identity, the relationships that once defined you, they were stripped away in the flames. And yes, it hurt. It felt like death. But death is not the end for the chosen. It's the beginning of remembrance. Because in those moments where you felt like you had nothing left, something ancient stirred inside of you. A knowing, a voice, a flicker of light in the dark. That wasn't weakness. That was the soul waking up. Leadership, real leadership, the kind that shifts timelines and heals generations, doesn't come from comfort. It comes from dissent. It comes from being dragged to your knees and still choosing to rise without bitterness. It comes from knowing betrayal, abandonment, injustice, and still keeping your heart open. Because only those who have known deep pain can hold space for the pain of others. And this world is drowning in pain. That's why you were chosen, not to escape it, but to transmute it. But here's the truth most people avoid. Before you can carry others, you must learn how to carry yourself. And that means being alone in the fire, long enough to meet your shadow. The parts of you that you've buried. The rage you never expressed. The grief you never allowed yourself to feel. The fear that silently runs your life. The fire brings it all to the surface, not to punish you, but to liberate you. Because you cannot lead from a false self. You cannot speak truth while hiding from your own. This is what separates the dark chosen ones from those who only play at power. You don't just wear light, you embody it. And that light isn't clean or polished. It's raw. It's forged. It comes from the places you thought would destroy you. And that's why it's unshakable. Because it's real. You've earned it. The world can't take it from you because you didn't get it from the world. You found it in the ashes. So many people are looking to be saved. But the dark chosen one understands that salvation begins within, that no one is coming, that the fire you've endured wasn't there to break you, it was there to wake you, to strip away the illusions and show you the truth. You are not here to be safe. You are here to be sovereign. And sovereignty begins when you stop begging for peace and start embodying your power, even when it costs you everything you thought you needed. Let me ask you something that most people are afraid to ask themselves. What part of you still fears the fire? What part of you is still clinging to the old, hoping that somehow it will make sense again? The truth is, it won't, because you're not meant to go back. You're meant to go through. And on the other side of that fire is a version of you that's been waiting, watching, ready to emerge. And when you do emerge, something incredible happens. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your path to people who were never meant to understand it. You simply become. And in that becoming, you light the way for others who are still trapped in their own burning buildings. You don't rescue them, you show them how to walk through the fire on their own. That is leadership. That is legacy. So if you're in the flames right now, don't rush the process. Don't numb it. Don't escape it. Let it do what it came to do. Let it burn away what no longer belongs. Let it strip you down to your soul. Because that soul, that indestructible core, is what the world needs. Not the mask, not the performance, the truth. And your truth was never meant to be clean. It was meant to be free. The divine reversal, how your deepest wounds become weapons of light. There's a strange and holy moment in every dark chosen one's journey where everything begins to reverse. Where what once felt like your greatest weakness becomes your greatest strength. Where the wounds you tried to hide for years suddenly become the very thing that opens doors, unlocks hearts, and shifts entire realities. This is the divine reversal. It doesn't come through striving. It doesn't come through pretending. It comes through surrender, through finally accepting that your scars were never flaws, they were the fingerprints of your mission. You see, the world has trained us to believe that pain is something to avoid, something to numb, something to deny. But the chosen ones know better. We know that pain is a portal. That suffering is sacred when you let it teach you. And when you stop running from your wounds and begin to sit with them, listen to them, honor them, that's when they begin to transform. Not into shame, but into access, into empathy, into supernatural clarity, into power that can't be faked. Because pain alchemized becomes wisdom. empathy and wisdom embodied becomes light, a light no darkness can touch. Have you ever noticed that the very things that made you feel unworthy, your sensitivity, your depression, your anxiety, your trauma, are the exact things that now allow you to understand others on a level most people can't reach? That's not a coincidence. That's design. That's your soul turning what was meant to break you into something that builds others. That's your darkness becoming medicine. And not just for you, for everyone you touch. But here's the twist. This reversal doesn't happen until you stop seeing yourself as a victim. That's the real shift. When you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to unlock through me?" That's when the wound becomes a weapon. Not a weapon to harm, but to heal. Not a weapon of ego, but of divine intention. You begin to realize that the very things that made you feel cursed were actually the codes of your calling. And the more pain you've carried, the more potential you hold. Because deep pain creates deep capacity. It stretches your heart wide enough to hold worlds. It tunes your intuition so sharply that you can read energy before a word is even spoken. But that's not ordinary. That's sacred technology. That's divine intelligence. And it only activates under pressure, under fire, under the weight of the things you thought you couldn't survive but did. So let me ask you something real, something raw. What part of you are you still hiding because you think it makes you too much? Your grief, your rage, your story? What if that's the very thing someone else is waiting to see so they can stop hiding too? What if your vulnerability is the key to someone else's liberation? When you show your wounds without shame, you give others permission to do the same. And suddenly your pain becomes purpose. Your story becomes service. Your darkness becomes a lighthouse. This is the divine reversal, where you stop running from who you are and start owning it. Fully, fiercely, without apology. You stop negotiating with your past. You stop editing your truth to be more palatable. You let it be what it is: raw, real, radiant, because that's what this world is starving for. Not perfection, not performance, presence. A soul that has met the depths and come back with gold. And here's the magic. When you own your wounds, they stop owning you. They stop controlling your choices, your relationships, your identity. You're no longer reacting from pain, you're responding from power. And that power is magnetic. It draws people in. It shifts energy. It creates space for miracles. Because now you're not just talking about healing. You are healing, walking, breathing, living proof that darkness doesn't win when light is chosen again and again. This is your moment to stop hiding, and to stop waiting for someone to crown you. The crown is already on your head. The fire didn't destroy you, it revealed you. And now the world gets to feel the frequency of someone who's been to hell and came back with heaven in their bones. Becoming the storm, why the world fears you and why you must rise anyway. There's a moment when a dark chosen one stops apologizing for their intensity. A moment when you stop shrinking to fit into rooms that were never built to hold your truth. A moment when you stop hiding your power because it makes others uncomfortable. And that moment is the storm, and you are it. Not the chaos that destroys, not the rage that consumes, but the force of nature that clears what is false, that wakes what is sleeping, that announces to the world, something sacred is here now, and nothing will ever be the same again. The world will fear you when you rise in your truth, not because you are dangerous, but because you are free. And nothing terrifies a system built on control more than someone who cannot be controlled. That when you stop needing approval, when you stop asking for permission, when you stop performing to be accepted, you become untouchable. And this world, as it stands, doesn't know what to do with untouchable souls. It tries to label them, silence them, twist their truth into something threatening. But here's what they'll never understand: you didn't come here to fit in. You came here to shake the ground beneath the illusion. You've probably felt it your whole life, and the way people respond to you, sometimes with awe, but often with discomfort. They sense there's something in you that sees too much, knows too much, feels too deeply, and they don't know how to handle it. You might have learned to tone it down, to be less, but the time for that is over. You were never meant to be less. You were meant to be everything, fully awake, fully embodied, fully alive. The storm is not about destruction, it's about alignment. But you come into people's lives, and suddenly things shift, truths rise to the surface. Masks fall off, hidden wounds begin to pulse, and they either move forward with you or they fall away. That's not your fault, that's your frequency. That's what happens when you carry the energy of transformation. You don't just enter a room, you shift the room. You don't just speak, you activate. And you don't just live, you awaken. But this kind of presence comes with a price. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. You will be projected on, and still you must rise. Because the world doesn't need more people who play small to be liked. It needs warriors of light who are unafraid to be real, unafraid to be wild, unafraid to be divine. Even if it means walking alone, even if it means being the storm. So let me ask you a question that only your soul can answer. Are you willing to be feared if it means being free? Are you willing to be misunderstood if it means living in truth? Are you willing to walk alone if it means walking in alignment with your calling? Because that's what it takes. That's what rising demands. Not perfection, but courage. Courage to be who you truly are without apology, without compromise, without delay. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be remembered. And not as someone who followed the rules, but as someone who rewrote them with fire in their eyes and truth in their bones. You are the storm because you survived the flames. You carry the winds of change because you learned to breathe through the darkest nights. You are the thunder that rumbles through silence, reminding everyone that soul cannot be silenced. So rise, fully, fiercely, unapologetically. Let them fear what they cannot control. Let them whisper. Let them leave. Because the ones who are meant to walk with you, they will feel you. And they will rise too.